the topic is a little contentious, which is risk or revolution in AI. So there are a few questions that we were just thinking about while all the discussions had happened in the last hour or so. Uh, let's just start with your initial take. I mean, this is a very broad question. How do you really right now perceive this space of new models coming in? Uh, they are almost becoming inevitable that you have to adopt them. The concerns are very legit. The known unknowns are kind of getting known, and the risks are also becoming more obvious. So maybe we'll start with you, Manjari, if you can give some initial thoughts.
Um, no, I think just as everyone else before us has been talking about, and we heard Justice Chandrachud and Mr. Venkatramani, I think AI and automation are some things that we have to understand and learn to adapt to and adopt. You can't wish them away. They are here to stay. They're only going to become more finer and more astute as we go forward. The thing is that it's in the especially in the legal profession, we are so used to doing things in a particular manner that to try and wrap your mind space around something which can add value to you in certain ways is not the foremost thing on your mind. You know, it takes you time to understand that this is something that can actually make your life more productive, can provide value addition in certain areas. Uh, I personally, and in my team, and I have a young lawyer from the team here, and she's leading the whole project for us on technology and adoption of AI, is because I thought we should learn from them to see what is it that we can do to bring about this balance of, having these new tools which can enable us, which can add to speed, productivity. And I come from a Japanese company, so there is a whole concept which Japanese have for a very long time called Shosho Ketan B, which actually boils down to doing things your products need to be, or whatever you do needs to be smarter, fewer, smaller, beautiful. So it's all about productivity, it's all about agility, it's all about flexibility. And I think that's what AI does. So I think we are in a space where we are trying to see how best we can marry the two.
I'd actually echo whatever Manjari said. And, in terms of its impact, I'd like to think of what the American computer scientist Mark Weiser said about great technology. Great technology is like a computer that's invisible and quiet and lies in the background. That is how I would like to see AI evolve. As far as our own profession is concerned, I think in the short term, its impact is overestimated, and in the long term, its impact is underestimated.
Thank you. I actually think that when you think of risk and revolution as a dichotomy, it may be incorrect because every revolution carries risk with it. And I think the one that we face as practitioners here is that we discard what has worked so far. And I think there's been a lot of reference to first principles, being able to practice the law a certain way. And I think those are, in the short term, essential tools that we maintain. We continue to learn first principles as the law changes as those principles evolve, because it lets you interrogate the results that are coming out of AI. It makes sure that you know how to use it effectively. Your answers are going to be better, your prompts are going to be better, what you're looking for, what you can get out of it, all of that is driven fundamentally by what we already know about the profession. And to build on what Manjari said is that, are you using AI to make those answers, apply those principles in a way that is faster, smarter, better, more, and ultimately, hopefully, more beautiful for your client?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm extremely bullish on AI. I think AI is going to have a fundamental impact on legal profession. I'm extremely bullish. I think I don't know about the risk. I think every step has got risks, like what Madhav has said. And I think I agree with what Hemant and Manjaree have said before me, and I don't want to add to that. But I think I definitely come under the eternal optimist and revolutionary mindset. But I think at least what we have dabbled with at our firm and what I have been reading over the last few years and seeing things, I think there's definitely much greater thought and acceptance that AI will revolutionize the legal profession.
Hi. So the initial thought that is about AI is we don't know the known and the unknown. But the fact that this transformation is not just technological, it's cultural. For instance, Dr. Venkat, when he spoke about when he started the profession, he had those books from Oxford, Black's Law. Then the shift came, we started shifting from using books as for research tools to SEC Manu Patra. Then later on, these tools are now evolving, and this is a transformation that we need to look at it as a culture, that the culture will change. As a lawyer, how we practice, it will change. How, we are yet to see. We've just seen snippets of AI in the judgments that we've seen from US courts as well as Punjab Haryana court, which we just talked about, but it will change. So that's the initial thought that I have. There are risks.
Sure. No, I think there are a couple of things that do resonate really strongly with some of the follow-up questions. One, you highlighted being eternal optimist with regards to, and also how Attorney General had mentioned about upskilling and reskilling himself as well. How do you think about the reskilling of or upskilling of the more senior staff in your team, the ones who are maybe more used to the existing processes, at the same time empowering the younger, newer members of your team who are bringing all these new toolkits, and how it's really balancing both the skilling as well as giving them the stage where they can impart changes in the processes as well. So maybe Hemant, we can start with you.
Sure. I think it's really all about, in the initial period, leaving folks with no choice but to use the technology, to be honest, right? Because to be very frank, and this has already been said as part of the earlier panel about us being the slowest moving profession, and just to add to that, I think the last major technological change that we as corporate lawyers were perhaps a part of was when track changes got introduced by Microsoft Word. So I think it is going to be quite a radical shift. We are considering a variety of strategies, to ensure that the more senior folks can start embracing it. I think you have to really, to incentivize folks at the more senior levels to really start using it, you will have to ensure that you speak in a language that clearly shows what will be the immediate return on investment as well, because a lot of the law firm models are really built around the billable hour and the revenue targets and so on. So it's very important to ensure that when you're talking about the cost that they would have to bear when they're embracing a tool, how they would perhaps be able to pass on some of that cost to their clients, and what might be the differentiator they might be able to integrate into their service delivery, which will help them retain clients who are looking for differentiation in services that are being offered.
Madhav, if you want to take that.
Thank you. I think the key consideration for senior folks seems to be that the other shoe has dropped. The expectation from clients is that you're using it to augment your services, to be more efficient when you're delivering your services. You're seeing that competitors are putting in their engagement letters that certain tasks used to take us X number of hours, now takes us this many minutes. So when all of that has happened, I don't think there's a choice, and people are moving with that change. And at least for what I've seen and what we've seen in the firm with the tools that we've managed to build in-house, some of the best results that you're getting are from senior folks. And I think this goes back to my earlier point that when you know what you're looking for, when you know what you're doing and how to use experience, and what you really skilled professionals know how to get really good answers, and adapting that onto the tools has not been the challenge. But that cultural point that Rahul made, that once you culturally accept that it is necessary, the other shoe has dropped, you're getting outstanding results from very senior professionals using technology.
So just on that, right? Because I think this is a concern that even as technologists, we are hearing, like, how are you really pricing the tool, or how are you really thinking about it getting integrated in our own billable models? Just like managing client expectations, like your clients definitely are also aware that you are utilizing some of these tools, right? And there was a mention of a renegotiation conversations happening, right? So how is it really changing largely the billable hours in the revenue model, if you want to?
You know, I was just thinking when we were talking about the fact that, you know, you'll have to pass some of the cost on to your client, and I was kind of thinking from a very different perspective, that if the client knows that you're using certain technology which is helping you to do the same thing faster, how come your billable hours go up? So they actually need to reduce, you know, to that extent. And so there is going to be this, I fully appreciate, and I've worked in a law firm myself, so I absolutely know that if you're investing in this technology and tools, there has to be a return on investment in some form, and obviously in a law firm that comes from your client. But to see and say how that value add is going to come, or which is going to be far greater than what it was earlier, in terms of when you were doing it quite manually and, you know, using the regular traditional way of doing it. So I think this conversation will need to be had. I'm sure there will be many more conversations, but it will also, to the flip side is that even as clients, I mean, when I look at our organization, we are also going to get more savvy at this, you know, and gradually the way of, it's how you are placed on that same platform of AI and technology, both at the in-house and both at a law firm level, where certain things we all understand, and the understanding of this is going to help the client law firm relationship in a more smooth, better way, whether it is billable hours or the kind of product that you're going to be getting from them.
Badri, same question for you. And like, do clients also then would require a disclosure of sorts? Like, what tools are you using? Or is it
Definitely, I think clients should be disclosed this information. I think there are going to be proprietary tools and there are going to be non-proprietary tools. For example, what you take on subscription and then to do it. For example, today I'm sure the clients know that we use Microsoft Word, Excel and PowerPoint. But I think over time, I think we will have other tools also which will be doing that. I also feel that I think today, for example, all tasks that we perform for a client have the same billable rate. So if Badri is doing a work for Manjaree, which is a 1 lakh matter, a 1 crore matter, a 10 crore matter, or a 100 crore matter, Badri's billable rate remains same for Manjaree. Okay, and Manjaree is very nice to pay that billable rate to Badri. But I think what will happen is that as we adopt AI, I think there'll be new pricing models and guidelines which will come in. So for example, a 10 crore matter or a 100 crore matter for Badri will still take more time and there'll be more billable work which will be there. But a 1 lakh matter or a 10 crore 1 crore matter might actually be a subscription model of sorts for Manjaree. So I think there will be some level of discussion between the firms and the clients will be on how do we manage these tasks which are of different complexities, but preferably overseen by a same level of category, because ultimately you're trying to manage the risk, right? As an in-house counsel, yes, what you're really trying to manage is risk. And you, at the same time, you also want to manage what's the spectrum of fee that you want to pay for managing that risk. And I think that's where some very interesting stuff I think will come up over the next few years in how we manage that relationship between a law firm and a client.
So again, it stems from the fact what are we using AI for? Purpose, the purpose that we are using AI for, the tasks that we are looking at. Secondly, the confidentiality of what we are using the AI for is of utmost importance. For instance, if a senior member adopts it, a junior member does not know at the beginning of his career that a data breach of a client has vast problems for a law firm. For instance, a data is uploaded on a chat GPT. For instance, my client is Suzuki. My junior puts up a statement of facts and put it on chat GPT to what it does is to summarize. Now chat GPT has that information. That's a sensitive information. At times we do SEBI matters. So price sensitive, M&A. There are a lot of things which depends on sensitivity of the data. That needs to be looked at. The ethics will have to be seen. Third aspect when we look at is strategy and critical thinking. What a lawyer brings is value. For instance, we brief senior advocates. You've seen the Mr. Venkatramani, Dr. Singhvi. The value he brings. Will that change with AI? No. It will help him, but will it change or not is separate. Secondly, the other aspect that we're looking at is tools that we are adopting day by day. For instance, Microsoft Word. Now it also has Copilot. Now for litigation, we've started adopting liquid text. That helps us. The subscription model helps us. That's an investment that firm has made. So these are the kind of initiatives and changes that the firm needs to take, and then we'll have to see how it progresses.
Understood. Just on that, because how do you also then envision, Badri, the competition in this space? Because now I believe even smaller boutique law firms could be a lot more efficient. The quality of the output they generate would be a lot higher. So do you see like even the competition evolving significantly?
Absolutely. I was recently talking to a very senior IP practitioner from the US who's been practicing for about 20-25 years now. Okay, and we recently met up, and what he said is that he's a part of a very big law firm there in the US, but he feels that the tools are making the practice of law a lot more flat. Just like the world is flat by that Friedman had kind of come up with. He says that the law profession is becoming more flat because you have tools now which will develop over the next few years, which is going to allow a person who's an individual to have a combination of agents, tools, and information for the purpose of being able to deliver a certain type of output, which traditionally large law firms with large number of people used to do. Okay, and that's really where it's going to revolutionize, which means that individuals today will probably have more power to be able to practice law, and that will change, and that's a good thing according to me. And I think the fact that you're going to have lot more democratization of the legal profession in terms of having a wider range of people have the ability to pull information together and provide, I think will generally in the end do well for the profession than the other way around.
So just extending on that, Hemant, now just the disclosure part, right? So just combining that, right? First on the competition, and then on the disclosures, right? Disclosures of, for example, we mentioned Microsoft Word or their OneDrive services possibly being used. There we are essentially sharing the data. So are the disclosures then going to be not just what tools we use, but maybe the data being shared on OneDrive, which was perfectly fine up until now? Then is it not fine that the data is shared with ChatGPT or DeepSeek to PRC? So just thoughts on that.
Yeah, so great question. And to be honest, you know, we've already been grappling with these questions for a long time now, and having adopted, you know, a firm-wide AI system, we very frequently answer questions from clients on exactly what the data flows are. Is the data leaving Indian cloud servers? is any of their confidential data being input naturally, not into any AI system that we use. So there are, of course, again, clients of all kinds, and we have clients who say that, look, we want this work done at a much faster pace, and potentially at a better price point, because by your own disclosure you use AI for it. And the important thing for us as a firm is to be absolutely transparent, that yes, absolutely, if there is something that we can do faster, we'd be happy to pass on the benefit of that to the client. But at the same time, the way it's actually panning out is that there is high risk and low volume work, which continues to have a very time spent based billing model. And then there is low risk, high volume type work that clients are going to start turn to law firms less and less for, which will definitely have to steer away from a time spent based model of billing.
Understood. So the very last question, because we did talk about budgets and like billing hours and how is it going to be passed on to the client. So Manjaree, first for you, this question, is there already enough credit built on the need to adopt AI models that budgets are being allocated separately for, because end of the day adoptions generally come from the allocated budgets for any new type of technology. Do you think we are already at that stage where it's no longer just experimentation, but defined budgets?
I think we are fast approaching it. I can say that for our own organization, that we have now a digital enterprise vertical. That I was sitting on a review of that just 2 days ago, and it was absolutely heartening to see that the kind of projects that they are looking at to have. We are looking at something called Tensai, which is an in-house built tool that we are looking at. So budgets are there. It's of course lies with the vertical. They are the service department, we are the user, and therefore if we want some things done from them, and we have a list of projects which get approved starting day one, the budgets of that are now getting inbuilt. Of course you have to show the value to it. I mean, it really should bring about a value to the vertical as well as to the organization. But yes, there is already a discussion and talk around those things.
Rahul, like just specifically, right? Is the credit enough built that there is already defined budgets, or are we getting there?
We are still getting there. There are not predefined budgets as of now, because it again stems from the fact, are we culturally adopting it, or are we resisting it? And also it also depends on the kind of practice that you're looking at for adoption of this kind of technology. Is it disputes or commercial transaction? So therefore the value an AI would bring to a transaction or a litigation is something that will make or break a budget for a law firm.
Badri? I'm just going to go like across the table, because
I think there should be in every organization, including law firm, because law firms we hate because profit is the most important and the only thing that we all think about morning, evening, night. I can be very, very this thing, cash flow and profit. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are all universal truths, as you put it. But I feel that every organization, big and small, should have a certain amount of discretionary spends. The problem that we sometimes have with budgets is that we typically tend to have an outcome attached to it. And many times you will find some very interesting things that when we attach an outcome-based budget to experimental tasks, you typically only end up with disappointment. So instead, what I would suggest is that if you have some amount of discretionary budget, which is just to be what in the startup space, that you just have to burn, okay? And you'd be amazed to see some very interesting things which come out of it, because you do end up seeing results which you don't anticipate. And I think I would recommend. I have an uphill battle all the time in my organization to get these discretionary budgets, and I think, but wherever we have been able to get it and utilize it, we have only seen the benefit, not in the way that we envisaged, but in other ways. Okay, as they say, God moves in mysterious ways, and I think so does technology and AI.
Madhav?
But I think when you think about budgets for AI in law, in the context of law firms, I think you really need to think about it the same way you do, like Badri said, as a R&D budget. We're seeing constant experimentation, where our tool has changed in the short time since it's been rolled out to the whole firm massively. I feel like every 2 weeks we get an announcement that there's another feature. But those seem still relatively like smaller steps. We're seeing tools being rolled out by really boutique practices. There's a firm in it's a large international arbitration firm, but still quite boutique, that has a cross-examination tool that trains their lawyers how to cross-examine this particular witness. What does they put out in the world? What they're writing? What their leanings look like? Now that incredible. These are sorts of applications are only going to come from experimentation.
Understood.
And becoming more and more key to
Yeah.
practice. So yes, you need the budget.
Hemant?
Yeah, I think it's really not an option. It's not a choice because I don't think the day is very far off where each law firm, at least to justify the fact that it's a large law firm, with multiple practices and so on, is going to have to deploy multi-agent orchestrators, which have specialized training data on which they've been trained and fine-tuned for, and to get there, I mean, you have to start somewhere, and nothing really gets started without that check being signed, I guess.
Yeah, I think then AI is definitely going to revolutionize at least the P&L. The cost center. No, this is great. Just one quick one-liner thoughts just for the young professionals, because folks who are still students, the law students, as they are looking up to all these large law firms, right? If you had to just advise, should they be jumping on this AI bandwagon right now, or wait for it, or like any words of wisdom? Just quick ones so that we can record it.
They certainly should address the bandwagon, look at it carefully, decide when to jump on it totally or in a very balanced way. I would always advise the young law students or young lawyers that, do not lose sight of core law. That's very, very important. Your understanding as a professional of the law is very critical, but you cannot completely disregard the revolution that is happening in terms of AI and innovation, and you should be able to have that judgment as you evolve, to be able to marry the two, to be able to provide best solutions to your in-house stakeholders or your clients.
Yeah, so I think the sort of terse one-line response to that would be that the best way to future-proof your career would be to be prepared for a job market where jobs don't exist. Instead, the question should be framed as what is the value you want to offer, because the basic structures that create need for legal service will continue to exist. Businesses will need risk mitigation. Large swathes of society will need justice delivery. There is going to be interpretative tension between tax authorities and taxpayers. So unless these structures go away, there is always going to be need for legal service. So the way to really frame the question is, therefore, how can you offer value? Rather than, try and build your life towards jobs as they exist now.
Makes sense. Madhav?
I think as you're starting out in the profession, you need to think about two things when you're addressing AI. The first is, what does AI add to your skill set? But I think the more important questions in many ways is what are you adding to AI? Because as your clients will increasingly be able to get the same product, particularly in large, sophisticated organizations, get the same product out of AI. If you're not adding anything onto that, if you're not adding nuance, if you're not adding quality, if you're not adding just additional arguments if you're a litigator, commercial sensitivities if you're a transactional lawyer, you're not giving value. And if you're not giving value, you don't have a place in that world. So if you just jump on the AI bandwagon and say that I can provide all services using this, and you're not something beyond your ability to use that tool, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Badri?
I think my one line would be I agree with Manjaree. And my second line, if I may, is to say that the only advice that I keep giving young lawyers, and I will continue to keep giving young lawyers, to keep reading. And I think over time, you're always going to be on top of an AI system. And end of the day, we are going to live in a human versus human interaction-based society, where as lawyers, we don't sell analysis, we sell a judgment, an opinion, a view, okay? I find far too often now lawyers tell, this is also possible, that's also possible, without really being able to say, I think this is my view. And I think the only advice, and this is a universal advice, will continue to be there, would be to say, keep reading.
If I just might add just to what Badri said, and I keep saying this to all the people on my team, that, we've forgotten to read. And reading means, I tell them, at least begin with the 2 national dailies of reading your newspapers. You have to have a holistic view of life to be able to provide an opinion. It is just not about people think that if you only just read the law, you'll be able to get. The law is in context of a larger ecosystem. So therefore, to understand your ecosystem is very, very important. So to be able to integrate the 2.
I recently had a general counsel who had come up with who said that I'm going to now prepare for a litigation in Supreme Court using AI tool that he's developed. I said, all the very best. Okay. So we had a situation where we were arguing this matter, and middle of it, suddenly he pulls out a thing that this is what the AI is now telling, this is how it is, this is what you must argue. I mean, impressive at a certain level, but then when you read it, it's contrary to what you really want to argue at some level. So, so I said that all this is very nice, but I think we need to read the law. He says, after Badri, after this AI and all comes now, no reading at all. At that moment, I felt safe. Because 99% of people are going to think, अभी कुछ पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, टक करके डालेंगे और करके निकले आएगा करके, तो नहीं होता है वो, okay? And the last thing also I keep saying is that the most difficult thing in the legal profession is to read the law. Yes. Everything else is very easy. Invoicing is easy, billing is easy, business development is easy, putting out newsletter is easy, everything is easy. 50-page judgment of the law of the Supreme Court and to figure out what exactly it says is the most difficult task. And I think if we all focus on the difficult tasks, I think the easy tasks will follow.
Rahul.
So I would just say that what Manjaree said at the beginning, that you have to read. And for instance, my senior, every time he interviews, his first question is, do you need a newspaper or not? And that's the first conversation that he has with a candidate. That, do you use a newspaper? If the candidate says, I'm just doing a digital, I do read it at times, he loses his interest there, straight. So reading a newspaper, reading a judgment, what a judge thought while he was writing a judgment is premised on certain facts, certain circumstances, which I think is something that you can't get out of an AI. You may be able to fetch a judgment, but you still have to read the critical thinking the judge has applied while setting the tone, everything, because it's a story that he's telling. Until you read it, you'll not be able to understand where it started, where it ended, and that's what law teaches you. So that's my take.
That's great. Thank you so much, my fellow panelists. This was great. One of the things that happens with me all the time, anytime I get very consumed in the conversation, I forget like what the time check was. And but on the reading, because we have been talking about it, I think you would be very pleasantly surprised. There's lots of reading component that you will get from Palette with regards to a bunch of things that we are planning out. So I think we'll make sure that there's no lack of innovative stuff to read about, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.